What is up, everybody? It's Chad here from the Teach Better team and the amazing one and only Dave Schmidow. Happy Wednesday. Dave, how is your morning going so far this morning as we enter this Admin Mastermind Rewind?
Yeah, man, it's going better and better right now. It's pretty amazing. I got a cup of coffee here, got my computer up, and I'm chatting with you, man. It doesn't get much better on a Wednesday morning, I'll tell you that.
You know, there are days I wish this was just my job all the time. You know?
I mean, it's not. You don't go on camera and talk to me all the time?
Only in my dreams, Dave. Only in my dreams. So
and we're done.
Thanks, everybody. It's been a fantastic rewind. Now that it's been awkward. Okay, absolutely. So we had two awesome mastery admin masterminds yesterday. We covered some awesome topics in the morning and then even more topics in the night, like always. And I'd love to kind of get into some of the bullet points. I know I was in the morning session and we had some great conversations. One of the big things I feel like we talked about was connecting remotely. And I think this came up in two different ways: connecting with those students that are falling through the cracks and connecting and building culture and school spirit remotely without physically being in place. And I feel like that was really kind of like the theme for the morning. Would you agree?
Yeah, yesterday morning, if I can even rewind to that, we had such a huge crowd show up for us yesterday morning to celebrate.
A lot of new people too.
Yeah. We had to split up into multiple groups, which was so cool. It's the first time we've done the breakout room things in the mastermind. So I'm just throwing that out there for people that are still wondering if they should come or not. Please come. We got the room. We want to hear from you. We literally split up into multiple breakout rooms and had multiple conversations, brainstorming taking place at the same time. So it was phenomenal. And I was able to bounce back and forth between both rooms that we had going on. And you nailed it. There was a common theme, a common thread amongst all the conversations. It was the culture building. It was keeping relationships in place. Administrators were talking about how they're going through these transitions with their plans and going from hybrid to face-to-face, or from fully remote to hybrid. And they're all working through these transitions, trying to figure out how to make sure that there's unity and cohesion amongst the staff, that students are still feeling a part of the school, and how to bring everybody back to a collective whole again. And great conversations, great ideas, great brainstorming. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one story that was shared that I just want to bring up because it was super heartwarming, and I think something we can learn from in this time. And that was a principal had a staff member with a student who had fallen off the map. We, as teachers, we might have these students; as schools and as administrators, as leaders, we might know their names because they keep on coming up on no work turned in, or no participation, or haven't shown up to a Zoom or responded to a call, or whatever that is. And there was a teacher that said, this one student, I haven't talked to them. They've fallen off the face. Like, I want to try to set up a one-on-one meeting in the morning and have breakfast with them. And I absolutely loved this idea because the principal didn't really, he's kind of said it was okay. And then all of a sudden one day he shows up outside of his office window. Here's the teacher and the student who no one has seen or heard from in maybe weeks or months at this point, having breakfast, having a conversation, connecting and building a relationship with that teacher.
Like sitting outside having breakfast together. Yeah.
And they said it was amazing. He brought his own breakfast. His parent dropped him off on time. And that really spoke to me, because what it said was students still want to connect. They still want to have that connection. And especially, adolescents, teens, and young adults, they don't necessarily wear that on their sleeve all the time. In fact, they wear quite the opposite. And my experience in the classroom has dictated that. They wear quite the opposite, and they say, they stay away from me. I don't want any attention. But a lot of times that's a cry for help. And a lot of times I really think we have to get down to the brass tacks and connect with the humanity of our students. And we don't need to talk about all those assignments that they're not turning in, but we need to connect them with them on a human level first, because then we can make progress on an academic or a content-based level as well.
Absolutely. And that conversation really, it it morphed and went down some rabbit trails, which was so good because we talked about the need to have those connections with kids. And I know I was thinking about it through the lens of myself as a dad, and I've got a 14-year-old who often says, just leave me alone. But the minute I say, hey, let's go to Buffalo Wild Wings, he's like, I'm in, let's go. Have a conversation in the car together. But I'm also thinking about some of the conversations people had yesterday where teachers oftentimes tell administrators, I've got this, just stay out of my room, I'll figure it out. And they say they want to just be left alone. And there's some truth in that. But when that administrator can just sit beside them sometimes and say, hey, let's do something together. Let's do this with each other, as opposed to me trying to tell you what to do. There's power in that. We all want connection, and it's up to us to find connections with other people.
Yeah, I really love that transition and that idea of like staff and teachers and adults do the exact same thing. But I think it comes down to, is the trust in the relationship there, where you know when that principal or that leader or that curriculum director or that superintendent comes in your room, that it's a supportive visit and not an evaluative or a judgmental one. And I love the idea, and we talked a lot about this, collaboratively working on something, right? And going, hey, let's tackle this problem together. So now we're both solving the problem. And I know I always felt better as a teacher when my principal was like, well, what if we tried this idea? Like we, as like a collective we, what if we tried this idea? Because then I, as the educator, felt 10 times more confident going after that risk in my classroom, because I knew I had the blessing, and it was maybe even the idea that my administrator might have. And it just made things so much easier. But I think some administrators create that tension. They don't do this on purpose, but they can create the tension of, I'm coming in to observe and evaluate and judge you all the time. And it's really, really hard to break that, especially if you are in fact their evaluator, because now every interaction is tainted by that title or what have you. And I know you've experienced this as an administrator too.
Yeah.
But how do we change that conversation, connect on that human level, and go, I'm here to help. What do we need to do to help kids, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of a conversation I had with somebody last week after a mastermind. I connected with somebody, and they were talking about trying to find the balance, and they know it's so important to connect with staff, but there's just so many things to do. And this was an administrator that is back to face-to-face. Their school is all in person. And I encouraged them and I said, one of the things you can do is stop putting all of the things on your calendar that you have to do that make you seem busy, and start finding areas on your calendar where you can do things with other people. So for example, if you know that you have to go observe 5 classrooms, find some other teachers that will go with you to 5 other classrooms. If you know that you've got tasks that you have to do in your office, identify which of those tasks it's okay to have other people with you while you're doing those tasks. Again, I'm going to relate this back to me being a dad. I've got 4 kids here at home, all doing virtual school. And every single time that I'm not talking or in some sort of face-to-face meeting online, I am in the basement with them doing work and doing school, because sometimes just that physical proximity of doing things with people adds to that relationship. Like me and my 14-year-old son, just having him in the car with me as we drive places does something for our relationship, as opposed to constantly, I got to do my thing, you got to do your thing, we're all so busy. Find ways to do things with people, and it adds to transparency, vulnerability. Those informal conversations just happen, and that's where relationships can be built.
I love that. And I think it's a great strategy, is those collaborative walkthroughs, those collaborative observations and discussions. Because if I go, hey, Dave, let's go look at Jeff's classroom today. Now, all of a sudden you're my peer and we're having a conversation about instruction, not even Jeff's classroom, or Ray's classroom or whatever it is. Now we're having a collaborative discussion. And then the next time when I say, hey, Jeff, or hey, Ray, would you come and take a look at Dave's classroom with me? Now we've created an environment where that's the norm. That's what happens. And I often reflect on this, the idea of teaching in a fishbowl. And this often gets a negative connotation, but I actually credit teaching in a fishbowl for a lot of my success as early on as a teacher, as well as my success now as working with teachers in schools. Because when I was a first-year teacher, straight out of my master's program and the Woodrow Wilson Teaching Fellowship, I literally had an administrator, who was evaluating me via the Ohio evaluation system. I had my university who was evaluating me as a part of the Woodrow Wilson Teaching Fellowship. I had the national organization of the Woodrow Wilson Teaching Fellowship evaluating me. And then I had a new teacher program mentor who was evaluating and helping and supporting me. Now, I truly appreciate all the people that were supporting and helping me, but I got to be honest, as a new teacher with multiple preps, first time I'm doing all this thing, I literally had a person in my room every single week, or multiple people in my room every single week. So I had to wrestle with this idea, and I'm switching gears here a bit, I apologize, but I had to wrestle with the idea as an educator. I can't put on a show. My instruction needs to be good enough for anyone to see at any time, because if it's not good enough for anyone to see at any time, it's not good enough for my students. And once I switched to that and said, the person watching isn't the important person here. The people experiencing the learning are the most important people here. That's who I need to perform for. That's who I need to entertain and be evaluated by on a daily basis. And their evaluation of me will be shown in their learning. And
so
once
we are observed every single day. Every single day.
By 20 to 30 kids.
Absolutely. From some of the most honest, critical thinkers on the planet. Absolutely. Yeah. But that's I feel like you're the king of segues here. Transitions are gold here. In our evening session, we had very similar conversations, but yet very different conversations, if that makes any sense whatsoever, just simply because we have a different group of people that come to the evening session.
Yeah.
And our conversations in the evening were related. We talked about the concept of assuming the good and doubting the bad. We talked about how no matter our role, we've got people that we answer to. Whether you are an assistant principal and you answer to your principal, or you are a principal, which is in essence an assistant to the superintendent because you do their bidding, we're all the assistant to somebody else. And we always feel like we're being observed from above and we're being observed from below. And sometimes we just feel like we're stuck in the middle. And we can get frustrated at times when messages kind of skirt us and go around us. Maybe the top just communicates directly with the bottom, and I'm using top and bottom metaphorically, so please don't think I'm calling teachers on the bottom, but a superintendent might communicate directly with teachers or with the media, and principals or assistant principals are left out of the conversation loop. And how do you respond to that? And we talked very clearly about the fact that we are constantly being observed by those people that we work with, and they're looking for our reactions. They want to know how we're going to respond when we have been left out of the loop or when communication gets mixed up. They're looking to us for that example. And it was a great conversation about how to present yourself honestly, transparently, to own your frustrations, but to communicate problem-solving solutions. So another great conversation last night.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times we worry more about our external, how do I want to say this? How we're perceived as a person, as opposed to how we actually are. And something I found, I remember in a conversation I had with my own principal, and it was my third year implementing, my second or third year implementing the grid method. I was kind of in my groove, finding myself as an educator. I was kind of like knew who I was. I knew how I ran my classroom. I knew how I built relationships. I knew how everything was. And he looked at me and he goes, I've been observing you for a few years now, and I want you to know that you are more calm than you ever have been as a teacher. And it's not because you're more or less prepared. It's because you know who you are, you know what you're doing, and you're owning that. And you realize that everything's not going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect because you know how to deal with it when it doesn't go perfect. And I think a lot of teachers can benefit from that, especially right now, that everything's not going to be perfect.
Right.
And we don't need to be perfect. We do need to find ourselves in this process, though.
Yeah.
It's not about becoming a new educator. It's not about becoming like a new version of yourself. It's about finding the strengths that you already had as an educator and enhancing those with the tools you have at your disposal to survive and thrive in this new crazy environment, whatever that is for you.
And, we've talked about this now since March, and we keep saying it because it's true, that this pandemic hasn't really created new problems. It's simply magnified the problems that were already there. And one of the issues that we have all experienced throughout our careers is both the comparison game and the blame game. We often judge other people by the results and judge ourselves by our intentions. And we believe that we're doing all that we can. We believe that we're doing everything right. But then when other people don't do things the same way that we would have, we get frustrated. And we look at them and say, why didn't you do things the way that I would have done them? And as leaders, this happens all the time when we're looking at the teachers we support who don't necessarily teach the way that we taught, or when we're looking at our superintendent or our boss or the legislators that pass laws or rules or policies that we look at and say, why did you do that? It doesn't make any sense. It's very, very important that we assume the good and doubt the bad. That's the simplest way to say this. You have to assume that everybody is doing things the best they can. Doesn't mean it's the best. It doesn't mean it's perfect. Like you said, we can always improve. We can always get better. You've got to be comfortable with who you are, but you have to assume that the other person is doing the best that they can in the moment as well.
Yeah. I think that one message goes so far beyond just like leaders and teachers, but it also goes all the way to students, right? Mm-hmm. I used to always tell teachers at workshops and trainings, and I still do this from time to time, where I go, you need to assume the best intentions from your students, just like leaders need to assume best intentions from their teachers. And if we all assume that everyone has the best intentions, then the results or what happens or the actions can be identified, evaluated, or discussed in a non-threatening way.
Absolutely.
Right? Because I would argue that it's only when our intentions are attacked that we get angry or that we get super emotional, right? Mm-hmm. Because the results are what they are. No one's ever, like, if a lesson blows up in a teacher's face, they know it didn't go well. They're not going to argue that it went perfect when it obviously didn't go perfect, right? Mm-hmm. If a leader has a new initiative and it falls flat, they know it didn't go well. They know it didn't go perfect. But if you attack that leader on the reasons they wanted to do that initiative, or the teacher on their intentions of maybe, you wanted to do X, Y, and Z, or wanted to do less work, so you tried this new thing with your students or what have you. Now you're attacking the character of the individual as opposed to the outcomes and evaluating the practices that were put into place. And I think that's something that universally needs to happen with our students as well. We need to assume that they're doing the best that they can and evaluate their results. Even if they're sitting there in bed on a Zoom call with their microphone off and the video off, maybe that's the best they can. Maybe that's the best they can do.
Absolutely. Right? But the systems that we have in place, and we didn't talk about this last night, so don't think that this was part of Mastermind. It's just me spitballing right now.
This is just bonus.
Yeah, right. Bonus content. Feel free to fast forward, pause, delete, walk away, or listen. The system that we have in place is a system that unfortunately perpetuates the opposite of what we're preaching right now. We have a system that slaps labels on people as opposed to ideas or products. We start calling students at risk, or teachers effective or minimally effective. And people start to own those labels as though it's their identity, as opposed to just judging the outcomes or the process that we can continue to improve. And that's the struggle in all of this. I'll be real right now. That's kind of what we saw happening last night for those of you that watched the circus on TV. We saw people that were attacking people as opposed to ideas. We looked at people that were assuming negative intent, where right, wrong, ugly, I don't know. I'm going to assume that both of those candidates have the best intentions. They want to make this country great. I'm going to assume that every single teacher in every single school shows up every day and says, I want to do what's best for kids. I'm going to assume every single superintendent wakes up and says, I'm going to do what's best for my school. But when things don't go awry, oftentimes we then slap a label and say, that's a bad person. They're an idiot. They don't know what they're doing. They're lazy. We slap a label on the person and their character and their intentions as opposed to that outcome. So then we no longer work on trying to improve outcomes because we've already indicted the person. And that's our struggle. let's remove those labels and start focusing on outcomes so we can fix the processes.
It's the adult version of grading for compliance versus grading for mastery,
There
right?
you go.
So
there you go.
like if a student does 3 problems perfectly and they know how to do something, but doesn't do the extra 50, they still have the same level of mastery, whether they did 3 or 50, probably.
Yeah. Nope.
Right. So if I judge that student and go, you're lazy, you get an F. They might know the exact same amount of information as the student who does all 50 and has an A, but needed to do all 50 because they didn't understand it the first 3 times.
Right.
And so I feel like this sort of like kind of ties everything together of like, are we evaluating, judging, and helping individuals or helping produce successful outcomes?
That's it.
And I think that can be a huge focus as people go into this week, right? Evaluating those outcomes versus the people putting the action into place.
And basically what we've defined, we have defined the term grace that everybody's been throwing around for months. We keep saying, give me grace, give each other grace. This is what we're talking about. It's boiled down to this conversation. It doesn't mean stagnate. It doesn't mean accept status quo. It doesn't mean be mediocre. That's not what it means. Grace simply means assume that people are doing the best that they can and then support them in getting better. That's it.
I think that needs to be a highlight headline. I'm going to put that on a plaque somewhere, right? Like, grace doesn't mean lowering your expectations. Mm-hmm. It means when things go wrong, you don't focus on the person or the mistake. You focus on how to make it better and how to support and improve the situation or the outcome with actionable items, right? And here's the truth, and this is true for everybody, and this is something I found. We are the worst critics of ourselves. Like when things don't go well, when a teacher's looking at their data and they know it's not good, you telling them that it's not good isn't giving them new information. They know this. But if you say, looking at this data, what can we do to make this better? I understand the circumstances. I understand why. Let's have the grace to understand the context of why this is the way it is. Now let's have the conversation to improve it and take steps forward. Because if we stick to the conversation of why is this so bad? Why is this so bad? Why is this so bad? We're ignoring the grace that's required for the situation and the context. We need to move to those actionable steps forward to move the needle, to progress into better, where we're making progress and we're moving forward. Even if it's baby steps, that's still better than no steps at all. And we have to avoid that as leaders and as educators with our students and just across the board, I think.
So good. And I'm going to use the term grade in this sentence, but you can take grade and substitute it for any other synonym you want to.
Fair enough.
Whatever. But a grade without the ability to improve isn't feedback. It's just judgment. That's the bottom line. Give people the opportunity to improve and stop judging.
Yeah. It's an autopsy.
Yep.
Like an autopsy doesn't improve the health of the individual that's getting the autopsy, right? Like it's a post-mortem, as opposed to, let's talk about running, evaluating a long run, and you're pacing and you're saying, what do I need to do in the next 3 weeks to improve this situation? If there's no reason to improve, there's no reason for the conversation. Like if there's no way to improve, there's no way to improve. First of all, the value of that conversation plummets. I feel like you're talking
to me right now as a parent. I'm just thinking about with my own kids when they mess up, and I'm like, oh, I just want to go hammer them. But you're right. If there's no ability to improve it, why even have the conversation?
Right.
You're preaching to me right now, Chad. Go for it.
No, I need to remind myself of this too, right? Like if they drop an egg on the floor or spill milk, right? Like it's already spilled. I can't unspill the milk. I can help clean it up, talk about ways to not do that again, but then we need to move on and improve our milk handling skills or some sort of that. But demeaning, this is something I'm saying this to myself as well, because we've all been in that situation as parents. But like giving a post-mortem in a critical way doesn't necessarily improve anyone, because the value of that discussion has gone to zero, because there's no reason to improve on something that can't be improved. However, if there's grace enough for reevaluations or retakes or multiple attempts to demonstrate understanding, now I can take that feedback and move forward, progress, and continue to grow, which now increases the value of that discussion.
So let me just give this last takeaway for administrators out there. Think about this through the lens of evaluations and observations. If you're coming through and just doing your observations in March because you have to meet some sort of compliance document and you have to observe a teacher at least once, and there's no opportunity for them to improve on the feedback that you're giving, all you've become is a label making machine. You're going through and simply saying, here's where you are today. It's the label you're getting. You need to go through and observe and provide feedback with teachers, just like you would expect with kids, so that there's opportunities for improvement. So I'll leave it at that.
So I think you need to write a blog that is, are you a label maker or a supportive evaluator or something like that? Like that.
I may already have one of those somewhere. I'll see what I can pull up.
That needs to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Dymo labeler.
Yep. That's it. Yeah.
You shouldn't say Dymo on the back of your laptop to evaluate the teacher.
That's
oh,
funny.
Man. Oh, wow. All right. Well, this has absolutely been fantastic. Are there any other big topics that came up that you think we need to kind of rewind and discuss as we kind of get to the half-hour mark here?
No, I think in terms of the content, I mean, what's so cool about our mastermind groups is all of this stuff that we've been talking about for now 26 minutes and 48 seconds comes within comes in the middle 20 minutes of our time together. The other 40 minutes that's sandwiched around this is relationship building. It's conversations. It's just getting to know each other, connecting, making commitments to grow and improve. We have so many people that are just being so real and transparent with their own growth journeys as individuals and as professionals, whether it's people admitting and confiding in us that they're going to go start therapy, or they're going to start working out, or people that are going to write for 30 minutes a day, people that are just going to try to go to bed earlier, things like that, where they're saying, this is stuff that I need to do. And then we help hold each other accountable for those things throughout the week. And then just the weird random facts that we learn about each other that can help us grow each other. Just like we expect with teachers in classrooms with kids. When you know kids and you know what they can do, what they're passionate about, you can help grow kids. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to know each other so we can grow each other.
I love it, man. I love it. This has become such an amazing group that's continually growing. And so the core group of people is getting closer. And as we bring more people in, they're just kind of coming into the family and the conversation. I absolutely love being a part of it every single week. If people want to join up, and the other cool thing is we've set up the email reminders now. So if you sign up and you register, you're going to get emails. There is a website that's been going across the bottom of this screen, teachbetter.com/mastermind. Okay. If you register for it, you're going to get an email every single week reminding you. And there are 2 times. What are those times on Tuesdays, Dave?
9 a.m. Eastern or 6 a.m. Livia time, or 7 p.m. Eastern, aka 4 p.m. Livia time. I say Livia time because she comes to both, and she's over on the West Coast, and she can still do it. So
absolutely,
9 a.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Eastern.
So we absolutely know that administrators can join in the morning or the afternoon, whatever fits your schedule. Some people do both. Some people do one or the other. Regardless, they're all getting a ton of value. And I can be honest with you, I have 2 calls scheduled this week alone, just following up and having discussions from this group, helping consult and strategize and work through problems. And then there's a Voxer group where like the whole group kind of lives and talks throughout the week. This is becoming so much more than just a random Zoom meeting every Tuesday. This is becoming a living, breathing, and this is kudos to you, because this is what it's become since you've kind of taken the helm of the ship. So you've done an amazing job of just creating this organic, helpful, supportive network of people that used to be on islands, but now no longer are. And we're building this network. It's absolutely been amazing. And I can't credit you enough for just bringing that together and expanding this to what it's become today.
I appreciate that, but truly, I see my role as just the bridge builder between islands. That's all I'm doing. It's still up to these leaders to then walk across the bridge and to have the conversations. That's all we're doing right now, is trying to create connections so that people aren't alone. So they can reach out to people outside of their systems. They can reach out to people that they don't get to interact with regularly and just learn and grow together. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So so here's Jeff Prickett saying that he's a an alumnus.
Being amazing.
Yeah, he's an original founding member of the team. There's Livia Chan saying how much value she gets every single week. Dr. Krennis is joining us. That's awesome. Love to have all these other people. So Dave, thank you so much for giving up your time this morning. I always love these rewinds. I hope everyone has an amazing day. And as always, stay awesome, and we will see you next time. Have a great day, Dave, and everyone watching.